warm welcome to the show. Joining us right now is Małgorzata Bakalarz-Duverger, Director of the Warsaw Observatory of Culture. She leads research and art programs that map how the city's cultural life is changing. And she's here to talk about a new project studying how migrant children, especially Ukrainian and Belarusian youth, take part in Warsaw's cultural life. Hello and welcome. Delighted to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
So, the Warsaw Observatory of Culture describes itself as operating at the intersection of research, artistic practice, and public policy. So, could you explain to our viewers what is it that you actually do?
We do a lot of thinking and a lot of doing. That would be probably the shortest definition. We function in the paradigm of action research, which means that we do a lot of study. We study broadly understood field of culture. But we make sure that this academically rigorous research serves us then back to sort of give back to the groups that we have studied. That would translate into, for example, a system of support, of educational support for cultural institutions that we study from a specific perspective, for example, in the field of cultural education. That also translates into a set of recommendations for the city of Warsaw.
So one of your guiding principles is a new or from scratch. So does it mean that you're trying to perhaps modernize these fossilized institutions here in Warsaw?
Well, first of all, they are not fossilized. There's a lot that has been going on. And I think that the more we've been working with them, the more I understand that we need a new discourse, a new public discourse on cultural institutions and on cultural phenomena as a whole, because I do believe that we live in a moment where culture has a very special and very important role to play. And we should stop thinking about the false alternative security versus culture, because the social, economic, political role of culture right now really should not be undermined.
What are some of these old categories of culture that have become obsolete, perhaps?
So one of my favorites is the division or the distinction between the high culture and popular culture. As you might remember, it used to be shown as an opposite, with the high culture being the one more valued and the popular culture, entertainment, being the one less valued. Our research shows that this distinction is completely obsolete, because the needs of the audiences are either in between, or usually they choose the third way. The well-being is actually one of the major reasons why people decide to use culture, to participate in culture, to produce culture themselves.
So your latest research concentrates on young people, also on migrant communities from Belarus and Ukraine. Why are these groups so important?
We live in very interesting times. Warsaw has been changing dramatically, and it's not just the global phenomena like post-COVID, like the geopolitical situation, but also demographic changes. It is good to remember that this is the first time in 80 years when we actually hear Polish language spoken with a foreign accent in a public space. And that's something that used to be a norm in multicultural Poland, but was not for at least last 3 generations. So this is a completely new moment in history of Poland, obviously in history and in the situation of Warsaw. And we have zero knowledge about what it is or what kind of patterns and styles and preferences concerning cultural participation.
So what have you found out so far? Can you share with us some preliminary observations, perhaps?
Well, one of the most important things, I think, is that there is a lot of helplessness and a lot of intuition, sort of spontaneous intuition that is not systemic in the way cultural institutions respond to the needs of young people. This is what we have just finished, is a pilot of the bigger research project that is going to be held for the entire year 2026. So right now we were really studying very small numbers of both parents and children and cultural institutions that we spoke with. So because we focused on the age group 7 to 15, which is more or less primary school, we decided to start with them because this is the moment when children decisions are also influenced and somehow affected by the decisions of the parents. So this was an opportunity for us to get a better understanding of how really the family life looks like here, and what kind of activities the families choose, what kind of activities and what kind of cultural events they decide to take part in, and also which ones are impossible or inaccessible for them. The major finding is that anything that is outdoors and any kind of cultural outdoor activities are very important for families to spend time together. And you would think that it's about the price of the tickets, but actually that's not the factor. The reason for that is this broadly understood social factor of meeting a lot of people, of interacting with others, and also of spending time together. Families, for economic reasons, families work very hard. Very often parents work in complementary days, so there are only a few days a week that the family is together. And culture is always the first direction that they choose as a reason to be together. So it has a great potential for the integration, of course, for their integration to society, but also for Warsaw as a whole, to understand that these open air kind of events that are quality cultural events is definitely something that is high priority for migrant families.
So how are the cultural institutions responding thus far? Are they open to this? Are they reluctant? What about the linguistic component? Because I think the language barrier is probably the most difficult one to overcome, right?
Actually, not exactly. The language barrier is usually the factor in the contact between the institutions and parents. But when it comes to children, especially children, the younger children, the easier it is for them to acquire Polish. And very often, and that's the challenge actually, that a lot of children have to grow up very quickly because they serve as translators for the families. And this is a challenge, this is one of the challenges that we determined as a barriers in cultural participation for children. So we have to remember that it is called parentification. So children become parents of their migrant parents because there are so many things that they have to take care of because of the fact that they speak Polish. So very often that also applies to the situation, let's say, in the field of culture. So to their participation in the activities of the community centers, or in getting tickets to the theater, or making sure that they get the classes in guitar and stuff like that. So one of the challenges that we have determined is that a lot of children considers culture as that space of healing, the space of well-being, the space where they can actually get better, in a sense that this is also a very warming and welcoming environment, any kind of cultural activities. But we have to remember that this is also a space where we should let them be kids and try to take away as much burden, as much organization or bureaucratic things connected to the actual participation as possible. And that would mean a very specific recommendation for the cultural institutions to have as many paperwork available in the languages of the migrant groups as possible, so that children don't have to translate them into their parents' languages. So I'm trying to show you that the fascinating part, but also a very difficult part of this research, is that we have a lot of very interesting zoomed out big picture kind of phenomena that we noticed, but also there is a lot of very specific little things that can be improved or can be changed just a little bit to really bring a huge difference in the accessibility, creating accessibility for young people to participate in culture.
But what about older people? Is there a concern perhaps that the first generation of migrants will not integrate as well as the second generation?
I would rephrase that question and say that it is our concern as VOC that if we don't try to better understand how to accommodate first generation and first generation and a half, which means children, because first generation is the parents who come here. First and a half is the children. Sometimes the second, it depends on the age of children. It's complicated, we don't have to talk about it. But the important thing is that if we're not going to pay attention to how help them out, how to get this accessibility going, how to integrate them into the cultural life, we are going to have huge risk of the second generation radicalization, and that's real. And I think that we are at the moment where it can totally go in either direction, but there is a lot that we can do to make sure that it's not going to happen. And that's an optimistic part of that research.
And of course you do a lot. Apart from working with cultural institutions, you also have a residency program for artists. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes, and this residency program actually also is open to non-Polish residents of Warsaw. We have just finished the third edition of this residency program. Its uniqueness again lies in details, which means that this is the only residency program in Warsaw, and one of very few in Poland, which does not require production, any kind of product at the end of the residency. So the residency programs usually mean that for a certain time, an artist who is eligible, who was chosen, can do their work. They receive the scholarship. Sometimes they receive also the space to work. But then at the end of that residency, they should show something, whether it's an artwork or an exhibition or a music piece. It's up to them. In our case, we announce every year the key term, the overarching topic of the residency, and we invite artists to respond to that topic, and that's the application process. They respond, and the residency program means that during the residency, during 3 to 6 months, they work around the reflection about that topic, and we sort of accompany them. We also finance their process of reflection, which may lead to something new that they're going to actually produce, but it may also lead to them rethinking their career or rethinking what it is that they would like to do next. We have an artist who was the so-called starving artist doing posters here and there as side gigs, and I cannot tell his name, I shouldn't, but now he's one of the most renowned poster artists, very active in the field of visual arts. And the reason why this happened was because he had the chance to have a few sessions with a person who helped him out in sort of thinking about the strategy of getting the message across about his art. So I would like to come back to the question that you asked and I have not responded to, which is that a new kind of project or approach. This is our ANEW. This is our from scratch.
And speaking of ANEW, 2026 is around the corner. So I wanted to ask you, what are your plans for next year?
Oh, we're going to be so busy. And good busy in a good way. A big project that we have launched at the beginning of 2025, which looks at different patterns of participation of the audiences in general in Warsaw, is finally coming to the moment in which we can start working on the final report. So in the probably in March we're going to launch a big report on that research. It was a huge survey that was launched on 9,000 residents. It was also a pilot project of working with cultural institutions on how to collect their own data about their audience. And that's something that was also never done in Poland on that scale and with this kind of methodology. So that's also going to be a spring of the next year.
I very much look forward to this. Małgorzata Bakalarz-Duverger, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And thank you for watching Pulse of Culture. Please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.